Hello and welcome back. This is Religious Studies 361, Ethics. And this is the second part of this thematic block about the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. In the first part, we analyzed the concepts of materialism and religion, and we saw what kinds of problems and questions true philosophical materialism faces and how religion offers an answer to them. Now, also as part of a background for our study of Max Weber's theory, in our next session, we will talk about Christian theology, some basic concepts of Christian theology. But first, I'd like to start with a brief, very brief actually, overview of the history of the Christian, history of the Christian Church. Just for the benefit of those of you who may not be acquainted with Christianity. Christianity, as we know, is about 2,000 years old. I should say that for the first 200 years, almost 300 years, there was no unanimity as to what being a Christian meant. Some Christians, quote, quote, thought there were 3 gods, others thought there were 30 gods. There were different opinions as to who Jesus was. He was God. No, he was not God. He was a prophet. No, he was not a prophet. He was just a great man. People had different ideas. All of these notions were finally put in a form of a body of doctrine by the church in a number of councils that took place in the first few hundred years of the Christian church. The way the church organized itself was in a hierarchical form with 3 levels. On the lower level, you had the deacons or helpers. Then you have the so-called presbyteroi, which is in Greek, from what you get in English, priests. So presbyteroi, priest, the elder, the kind of the community leaders. And then you had the bishops. The word bishop comes from Greek also, scope, like in telescope, the same root, telescope, microscope. The overseers, scope, seeing. So a bishop is an overseer, a supervisor, one who supervises, and under his authority are the presbyteroi, the priests, and then under the authority of the priests you have the deacons. That's how the church was organized. That's pretty much how the Catholic Church is still organized today. Soon one of those supervisors or bishops, the bishop of the city of Rome, took a certain preeminence above the other bishops of the Christian church. The other bishops would consult with him concerning difficult issues, and eventually that preeminence turned into a true authority, a claim to a higher authority, to a special authority over the church on the part of the bishop of the city of Rome. And it was based on certain passages in the Gospels in which Jesus appears to entrust Peter with guiding his flock. And then Peter went to Rome. He was the first bishop of Rome, and he was martyred in Rome. And so his successors claimed this special authority that they claimed had been given to Peter by Jesus himself. That was the Christian church in the beginning. So not everyone agreed with the decisions of these councils. There were some splinter groups that still today exist in the Middle East, some splinter churches, the so-called monophysite churches. Monophysite, meaning one physics, one nature only. That refers to an early decision according to which Jesus was both human and divine. He was both God and at the same time a man. So as a man, he had to suffer. He suffered like any other man. But at the same time, he was God himself. God, the Son of God himself. But some groups said, no, he couldn't suffer. he was really human. Sorry, he was human only in appearance, but he was just divine. He couldn't suffer like a man. He was divine. He couldn't die. So those were the Monophysites, and those Monophysite churches still survive today, as I said, in places like Syria and Egypt. Then the church continued mostly as this single body under the authority of the Bishop of Rome for another, for the first 1,000 years, pretty much, almost, since the church began organizing itself in the early times. Excuse me. In the year 1054, the first split takes place. That split separates the Western Church from the Eastern Church. Western Christianity, which will after that be called Catholic, and Eastern Christianity that calls itself Orthodox. Now these two names should be capitalized. They are names. Both words have a meaning, excuse me, but they are used as names. Catholic means universal. Orthodox means the correct ones, the right ones, the ones that have the right doctrine. But when capitalized, they're just names. Why did this split take place? Well, there are theological arguments for it, and there are also political reasons. Let me start with the political reasons for the split between East and West. By the year 1000, the Roman Empire had collapsed. It had collapsed long ago. There was no Roman Empire anymore. What had been the Roman Empire, encompassing all of Western Europe, was now a bunch of territories, principalities, kingdoms. There was no authority in Rome. The only authority that was left in Rome was that of the Bishop of Rome, which in a sense represented or had inherited, at least symbolically, the role of the emperor, the ancient Roman emperors. And if you see the way the bishop still dresses today in white, these white robes, they remind you of the Roman emperors, the way the Roman emperors dressed. That's the reason for it, really. It's a tradition that goes back to that. However, the Bishop of Constantinople, today's Istanbul in Turkey, was the bishop of a true capital city of an empire. The Eastern Roman Empire, now the Roman Empire had been divided by the successors of Emperor Constantine. Let me write this down. Constantine was a Roman emperor in the 4th century who in the year 313 decreed freedom of religion in the Roman Empire, making Christianity legal through what is called the Edict of Milan or the Edict of Toleration. Constantine created a city in what today we call Turkey, Asia Minor, that was called Constantinople. Constantinople, the city of Constantine. Today it's called Istanbul. And eventually, after Constantine, the Roman Empire, which was huge, was divided into the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. And the Eastern Roman Empire survived much longer than the Western Roman Empire, for almost another 1,000 years. So by the year 1000, by the year 1054, the Western Roman Empire had collapsed. It collapsed in the 5th century, 500 years before, more than 500 years before. But the Eastern Roman Empire was still a real empire with a real capital, imperial capital, and the bishop of that imperial capital was heavily associated to the emperor and had true the backing of the emperor for his authority. However, that bishop was, in a somewhat humiliating manner, under the authority of the Bishop of Rome. The Bishop of Rome, excuse me, where is that city? What is that? Rome was nothing anymore. It wasn't the capital city of anything. The Bishop of Rome didn't have the backing of great armies or any emperor or anything. While this bishop, so there was tension between the two of them. Okay, and that tension came to a breaking point over a theological point, which you may consider a minor one, at least from our viewpoint, appears to be not enough for explaining, for justifying such a breakup. But it was what is called the filioque clause. The filioque clause. Filioque in Latin means and the Son, and the Son. Now, what was the question there? Well, the question was that traditionally the church affirmed that from early times, okay, from these initial councils, that God was a Trinitarian God, a single God, but three persons in perfect union: the Father, all-powerful, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And in the creed, in the recitation of the statement of faith, it was said that we believe in the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, the three of them, but with a certain hierarchical order. So it's the Father, and then the Son and the Holy Spirit subordinated to the Father. So the Son and the Holy Spirit who proceed from the Father. Proceed, whatever it may mean. The Son was never created in theology near the Holy Spirit, but in a sense, here you have the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit on the same level. That seemed to be the agreement, the theological agreement, that both the Son and the Holy Spirit proceed from the Father. But that got changed in the Western Church. And so the creed began to be recited in such a manner that it was said that it was the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit who proceeds from the Father and the Son. And this upset the Eastern Christians. Because they said, no, no, no. It's not the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. It is and the Son and the Holy Spirit on the same level. So that's the filioque dispute. So we believe in the Father, blah, blah, blah. We believe in the Son, and we believe in the Holy Spirit who proceeds from the Father and the Son. That's the Western, okay? Sorry. We believe in the Holy Spirit who proceeds from the Father and the Son. That is the Western, as I said. Yeah. But that was not the original idea. The idea was that the Son and the Holy Spirit were both on the same level, subordinated to the Father. So that was the theological dispute that justified the breakup. So from then on, Christianity is divided into these two large blocks, if you wish: Orthodox or Eastern, and Catholic, Roman Catholic, or Western. Now the next big split takes place with the Protestant Reformation in the 1500s, early 1500s, the 16th century. Starting with Martin Luther. Now, who was Martin Luther? he was a